Sleep History. The little girl who waited at the train station. The year was 1945. The war had finally come to an end. Across Europe, thousands of soldiers began their long journey home. Railway stations filled with hopeful families carrying flowers, old photographs, and hearts full of anticipation. Some welcomed fathers, some welcomed sons, some welcomed brothers, and many waited for someone who would never return. In a quiet countryside town stood a small railway station built from old red bricks. It was never the busiest station. Only a few trains arrived each day. The station master knew every passenger by name. The porter greeted every traveler with a smile. And the old clock above platform 1 never seemed to hurry. One cool autumn morning, a little girl appeared on the platform. She couldn't have been older than 7. She wore a faded blue coat, brown leather shoes that had seen better days, and held a tiny cloth doll tightly against her chest. Her name was Emma. She quietly sat on a wooden bench beneath the station clock. Every time a train whistle echoed through the valley, she stood up with bright, hopeful eyes. Every arriving soldier made her heart beat faster. But every train left again, without her father. No one knew why she came. At first, the station workers believed she was simply waiting for someone arriving later that day. But the next morning, she returned, then the next, and the next. Soon, everyone at the station began to notice the quiet little girl. Mr. Thomas, the elderly station master, finally walked over one chilly afternoon. "My dear," he asked gently, "who are you waiting for?" Emma smiled with complete confidence. "My daddy." Mr. Thomas smiled softly. "And when will he arrive?" She reached into her coat pocket and unfolded a worn letter. "My mommy said Daddy promised he'd come home after the war." The station master looked carefully at the letter. It had been written nearly 2 years earlier. Its edges were torn. The ink had begun to fade, but one sentence remained perfectly clear. "I'll come home as soon as I can." Mr. Thomas folded the letter carefully and handed it back. "I hope he does." From that day forward, the station quietly changed. Every morning before sunrise, Emma arrived at the same bench. She never complained. She never cried. She simply waited. When the cold winds arrived, Mrs. Eleanor, who worked in the station cafe, began preparing a small cup of warm milk and fresh bread for her. Emma always smiled politely. "Thank you." When winter covered the tracks with snow, the porter, Mr. Henry, wrapped one of his own wool blankets around her shoulders while she waited for the afternoon train. She thanked him with the same gentle smile. As weeks turned into months, the station workers slowly became her second family. The ticket clerk taught her simple arithmetic while business was quiet. The signal operator showed her how trains safely traveled from town to town. The cafe baker secretly placed an extra apple inside her lunch bag every afternoon. Even the train conductors began waving whenever they passed platform 1. Some passengers asked, "Who is the little girl?" The station workers always answered the same way. "She's waiting for her father." The seasons continued changing. Spring flowers bloomed beside the railway tracks. Summer sunshine warmed the old wooden platform. Autumn leaves danced across the rails once again. Still, Emma waited. Every evening before leaving, she looked one final time toward the empty tracks, then quietly whispered, "Maybe tomorrow." One rainy afternoon, an elderly veteran stepped off a train using a wooden cane. He noticed Emma sitting alone beneath the station clock. He slowly approached. "Who are you waiting for, little one?" "My daddy." The old soldier removed his cap. "What was his name?" Captain William Carter. The veteran's expression changed. He became very quiet. He had known Captain Carter. They had served together during the war. He gently sat beside Emma. "Your father was one of the bravest men I ever met." Emma's eyes sparkled. "So, he'll come home?" The old veteran looked toward the railway tracks before answering softly. "Sometimes the bravest soldiers return in ways we cannot see." The next morning, the veteran returned carrying a small wooden box. Inside were Captain Carter's military medal, a neatly folded flag, and a handwritten note. He placed the box into Emma's hands. "Your father asked that if he could not return, his love would." Emma carefully held the medal. For the first time, she understood. Tears quietly rolled down her cheeks. Not because hope had ended, but because love had finally found its way home. That afternoon, every station worker stood silently beside her on platform 1. No words were needed, only presence, only kindness. Years passed. Emma grew into a young woman. She never forgot the little railway station. After finishing school, she returned, not as a passenger, but as the station's newest employee. She welcomed travelers with the same gentle smile she had once received. Whenever frightened children arrived alone, Emma always knelt beside them first. Whenever elderly passengers struggled with heavy bags, she was already there. And every year, on the anniversary of the war's end, she placed fresh white flowers beneath the old station clock where she had waited so faithfully. Visitors often asked, "Why do you always leave flowers here?" Emma simply smiled. "Because this is where I learned that family isn't always the people we're born with. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stay beside us while we wait." The little railway station remained small. The old clock still ticked above platform 1. The trains continued coming and going. But everyone who worked there remembered one quiet little girl. The girl who waited. The girl who never stopped believing. And the girl who taught an entire town. That kindness can arrive, even when the train we hoped for never does. So tonight, as the world grows quiet, remember this simple truth. Hope gives us the courage to wait. Love gives us the strength to continue. And kindness has a remarkable way of finding those who need it most. Close your eyes. Imagine the gentle sound of a distant train, the soft ticking of an old station clock, and the comforting knowledge that no act of kindness is ever forgotten.